Dan the Wheelman here, and my very special guest today is this. This is the 2026 Cadillac Vistiq. This is a 3-row full EV luxury SUV. Pretty rare thing these days. This is the entry-level model, but it still looks really nice. 21-inch wheels. You've got this kind of fake grille here. This obviously isn't a grille because there's no engine to cool there. It just looks like one. It's cool. These vertical headlamps are nice and do well to fit with kind of the rest of Cadillac's portfolio. Very nice stance. I really like over here how they've got this black kind of inlay here. That is done as a separate panel on the optic with which the Vistiq shares a platform, but they've kind of integrated into the side window there. I think it looks kind of neat. It's black, as so many people think every Cadillac should be. Personally, I'd like something with a little more color, but luckily there are other colors to choose from. Either way, on the exterior, it looks like a pretty nice SUV that I'm looking forward to driving, so let's get to it. So as I step into the Vistiq and fire it up, well, there is no real firing it up. It's an electric car. There's not even a start button. Get in, hit drive, and you're good to go. I'm greeted with this awesome display. 33 inches. It's one screen technically, but it looks like two. I believe it's an OLED display. If it isn't, correct me in the comments, but it's really, really sharp. The backup cam is sharp. There's various views of it. There's also some weird stuff in that you don't see the trip computer in the center of the screen here. That's off to the side. There's actually like a menu of kind of virtual buttons on the side here to go through your various kind of trip computer menus and all that kind of stuff. So that's actually kind of interesting, kind of different, but you got to know it or else you're going to spend hours looking for that trip computer. Anyway, there's another display here. This is a digital display for your climate control system. I don't love that. I'd rather have hard traditional buttons for that. I just think it's easier to use when you're driving. It's more responsive. You can use it with gloves on. Now, of course, you can precondition this car, being an EV, with your app, and then it's already warm when you get into it, so maybe you don't need to use this with gloves because it's already being warm, but still, I'd rather have a traditional controls through here. Another display up here, digital rear view mirror. There's no heads up display though, which I find kind of weird. I believe you can get one on higher trims. Speaking of tech, there is no, along with no heads up display, there's also no Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. It's Google built in only, which means your native navigation system is Google Maps. There's Google Assistant. Spotify is on here. You can't use it through your phone unless you run it through Bluetooth, which isn't great because the audio quality doesn't tend to be as good when you run something through Bluetooth like that. So you don't have it. I've heard various explanations as to why it is. I've heard it's because Google Maps, when operating in CarPlay, doesn't properly align with this vehicle's ability to plan your route with charging in mind. Apparently Google Maps on the app doesn't let you do that, but it lets you do it through here. So that's one thing. For two, I've got a 23 speaker AKG audio system here with Dolby Atmos sound. That doesn't work well with CarPlay either, I've heard. So there's your reasoning. It's too bad, especially since when I talked to Cadillac near the beginning of the CarPlay era, like maybe just under 10 years ago now, they said one of the main things on buyers' punch lists when it comes to luxury SUVs is CarPlay, and now they don't have it anymore, which is kind of weird. I think only one Cadillac electric vehicle still has CarPlay. I believe only the Lyriq does. Everything else, the Escalade IQ, the Optic, all that, nope, no more CarPlay. So that's a bit of a shame, but that's the way it is. Otherwise in here, it's really nicely appointed. Nice real leather on the dash, on the steering wheel. I've got some brushed steel for the door pulls here, which looks really cool. They pull up, that's neat. I don't have the open pore wood like some of the higher trims do. This is the entry level of the Vistiq, about $95,000 in Canada. But I do have this awesome carbon fiber weave, which is like a copper and black weave. Looks fantastic. And since it's got that weave in there, it's not as glary, I've found, as like as a classic black carbon weave or piano black insert, God forbid. There's very little piano black in here at all, which I really appreciate. And so yeah, nice aluminum. The door controls, the seat controls are on the door, which is great. Lifting a page from Mercedes book there. That means you don't have to slide your hand between the door jamb or the door and the side of your seat in order to get to your seat adjustments, I really appreciate that. Seats are nice and comfortable. I don't have the highest end seats in here. Higher end models come with massaging seats. I don't have that here, but they are heated and cooled up front. And the second row, which is captain's chairs here, is heated as well. Speaking of the second row, I like that it's captain's chairs. You can pass through them to get to the third row. All Vistiqs, I believe, are 3-row SUVs. Yes, pretty sure they are. You can pass through the second row to get to the third row, but I actually prefer going through between the door jamb and the second row seat back to get to the third row. I find that easier. So the second and third row aren't super roomy. This one here is only about 10 or so inches longer than a smaller Optic, which is another vehicle I've tested. I'm doing a video about that one soon. But yet they've still tried to jam a whole extra row of seating in here, and you can kind of feel it a little bit. Not as roomy in the second row as I think I'd like, but you can slide it fore and aft with a manual lever, which I actually kind of do like. I much prefer that to automatic, so that's kind of neater to electric. That's kind of neat. And the third row is well appointed. I mean, it's not super roomy, but it's fine for kids, and they've got a USB-C port back there, and they've got cup holders too. So it's not like there's nothing in the third row, but it's just not the roomiest place to be. But the fact that this thing has a third row at all is a layer of uniqueness. This is a pretty rare breed, a 3-row electric luxury crossover. You just don't see that many of them. Rivian R1S, Tesla Model X, sort of, although that third row is really vestigial. I don't even know if they're still making the Mercedes EQS. I don't actually know if they're still making that vehicle anymore. Thought there was a stop order on that, so there really aren't that many to choose from here. Not to mention that now that the XT6 is no longer, if you want a 3-row Cadillac SUV that isn't an Escalade, this is what you're gonna get. There is no more gas-powered version of a 3-row Cadillac SUV, so that's kind of, it's almost like it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy that this thing has to sell, because if Cadillac's going to sell vehicles in this pretty competitive segment, this is what their entry is. That means is you're turning on an EV. This is the EV moving into the real mainstream world. If you're going to have a 3-row crossover, that's a vehicle that people like to take on road trips. They like to use as their everyday car. So that means this thing needs to do a few things. Most of all, it needs to have range. And this one here is rated at 483 kilometers of range from Cadillac. But I gave it almost, I was at 95%, and I saw 495 kilometers of range, which is a good number. And it charges quickly too. It charges only via a DC fast charger. You can get an adapter for the Tesla Supercharger network, otherwise known as NACS or North American Charging Standard, or System, one of the two, whatever, means the same thing. You can get an adapter that's about $300, but you can only use that at certain Tesla Supercharger stations. The Tesla app will tell you which Supercharger stations you can use. Usually the newer ones, the older ones, it doesn't work. So you want to keep that in mind, but it's nice to have it. Otherwise, you're charging on DC fast charge, up to 190 kilowatts. You're looking at about, I think it's like, I don't know, 30 minutes from 10 to 80%, something like that. And of course, while you're driving, there's various aids to help you charge the battery while you're driving. You've got one pedal driving that's you can choose directly from the central screen here. By the way, this central screen is really cool. You can customize it a little bit. When you pull up certain menus, it actually gives you an option. Would you like to add this to your home screen, which I think is pretty cool. And there's a shortcut tray down here as well. Anyway, so you got this, you hit the one pedal driving, you can adjust from normal, high, or off. I've got it in high right now because I'm in traffic and that's the time you want to use it. And if you want even more, you could pull this paddle here on the left. This is not a shift paddle. This is a regen paddle. So when you pull that and you release the throttle, it really drags it down to give you more battery charge. So charging and battery is not a problem. It's a 102 kilowatt hour battery, by the way. So that's a big battery, which I think is why the third row or the second row is not the roomiest place. They got to find a place for that battery somewhere. So they've moved it in behind or underneath those seats back there. So that's probably why. Another thing you want if you're going to have a car meant to be moving families over long periods, you need storage. Now, I don't have a frunk in this, which is too bad, but there is underfloor storage in the cargo area. Of course, some of that is taken up by the charge case, or the charge cables case, which is actually a cool, like, kind of suitcase, kind of cool. So that is worth keeping in mind, but there is some underfloor storage there. Once you fold all the seats, you're looking at like 80 cubic feet of storage. I'll put the liters on the screen just a minute there, which is pretty good. It goes all the way down to 15 behind the third row, 15 cubic feet, but that is a pretty good amount of storage as well. And since you got the digital rearview mirror, you can pile things up high behind you and it won't affect your view out because the camera is looking out of the vehicle. Same with tall passengers behind you. They won't get in your way, so you won't have to stare at the pimple in your passenger's face or your 13-year-old son's face while you're driving. So that's actually kind of neat. So it's well appointed in here. It's fairly spacious. In the front row is fine. I should mention I'm comfortable in it. My friend Dan Alika over at autotrader.ca, him and I are about the same size, so also have the same name. He took some issue. He found the seat position too high. I've actually been okay. Even with the wheelman hat on, I can look up and down. It doesn't bump into the headliner. I can see most of the display here. And the big one is I can see the indicators because they come on the outside of the steering wheel. A lot of times OEMs try to jam the indicator lights within the steering wheel, like underneath the steering wheel rim. Here, they're on the outside, so you can see them when they're on. But one thing that this vehicle suffers from that a lot of GMs do is a pretty kind of fiddly feeling indicator. I don't like this, feels kind of cheap. Gear lever too, kind of plasticky and cheap, don't love that, but whatever. So yeah, and that's nice. And then you've got the audio, which is great. I mean, 23 speaker AKG audio as standard, that's pretty good. With Dolby Atmos, that's awesome. That is a heavy hitting sound system. Even if you're streaming kind of low res stuff, it sounds pretty good. I do appreciate that. So that's the interior comfort, fit and finish stuff. The drive in the city here is great. I don't have air suspension on this vehicle. You can get it on the Vistiq. I don't have it here. And I also have the smaller rims on offer, 21-inch rims, as you saw in the intro. I don't mind the size. I don't love their styling, but whatever. 21, you can also get 22s and 23s. Now, as the rims get bigger, anybody who knows anything about driving, when you get bigger rims, that's when you tend to get more, harsher bumps. So that's when you really want to have that air suspension. I don't have the air suspension, but I also have the smaller rims, so I've got that much more tire profile around the wheel to absorb more impact, acting a bit as a piece of your suspension, and so I have no problem with the ride here. I think it's really nice. And the wheel is so smooth when you turn it. Feels like a nice smooth scarf sliding through your fingers when you do. The ride is really good. It's quiet. There's sound deadening speakers all over the place here. Sound deadening material in the bulkhead, front wheel wells, side windows, I think, front windshield as well. Super quiet. There actually is an engine sound. It's called motor sound. You can choose to have it on or off in the drive mode here, which is kind of neat. You can't do it while driving, which I guess is a safety thing, but which is kind of neat to have. So it sounds like a little bit like a spaceship. Doesn't sound like a V8 or anything like that. So that's fine. I think that's fine for most people driving this, but you still, even with that engine noise, you still want to have a nice quiet ride overall, especially in an EV, because that's kind of what it's all about and needs to be at this level especially. Now we're on the highway. It gives you a chance to experience a couple of things. First thing is the power. That's 615 horsepower and 650 pound-feet of torque. GM, they couldn't have given us two numbers that are easier to differentiate between sound-wise. Anyway, and that's why it's called, it says 900E4 on the back of this. That's the trim. That denotes the torque figure in Newton meters, I hear. So whatever, okay, fine. And it is quick. Like even at 6,300 pounds is about what this thing weighs, so it's no lightweight. It is quick. It pulls smoothly, lots of acceleration. I'm not even in sport mode here. If I was in sport mode, that cranks things up even more. And I can do that by going to drive modes here, sport here, there we go. So that really gets things going quickly. So you're never gonna, miss doing a pass. You're never gonna worry about joining traffic off a on-ramp. You've always got the power here. It's not a performance SUV, although there is a V button on here, which I guess cranks things up a notch for a little while, which is kind of funny. So it's really, really quick and smooth on the highway. And again, it's quiet. Even on the highway, as things start to get a little louder and speeds increase, you might deal with wind noise and stuff like that. Almost nothing. I'm not getting any the telltale wind over the wing mirror noise. I don't get that. It doesn't sound like there's a window that's half open, which I appreciate because that's one of my pet peeves. And because you've got that smooth grille up front, and there is no grille. There's not a bunch of air getting trapped up in the grille there, so there's less wind noise that way. Very little road noise on the highway. They've really got the NVH, noise, vibration, harshness reduction down to a science with this Vistiq, and I love it. And the other neat highway feature I have here is Super Cruise. Activating is pretty simple. Watch for the Super Cruise steering wheel icon, your gauge cluster there. Hit what speeds you want to take. You'll see a green bar appear atop the steering wheel here. That means you're hands-free. It will follow the traffic for you. If the traffic slows down, you will slow down. If it speeds up again, it will pull you along. It will change lanes for you. If you indicate it, even if you don't indicate and it senses that the car ahead of you is moving too slow for the speed you selected, it will pass the car automatically and will even get out of the way if somebody behind you is coming up too quickly for the speed you've selected. It's pretty cool tech, and it makes driving in traffic so much easier and just so much easier on the body, kind of like, and your mentality actually, kind of like the rest of this Cadillac Vistiq, so it fits in well there. And that's the thing about the Vistiq, it just makes the everyday grind so much more approachable with its great ride, quiet interior, good tech. It's just such a pleasing place to be, and that just reduces your stress while driving altogether. And I think that's a really important aspect of vehicles at this level. Yeah, no Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. That's a bit disappointing. There could be a little more room in the second and third rows. Yes, I don't have rear wheel steering at this level or the massaging seats, but there are 4 different trims of the Vistiq available in Canada, I believe. You can usually find one that fits your needs and your budget. And with regards to the seating and the CarPlay, you get used to that. You own one of these, you set the seats to what people that are going to be riding in them most of the time are most comfortable at, and you figure out Google built in, and you're good to go. And what you're left with is a really, really good, well-performing, long-range, powerful EV SUV with 3 rows of seating. It's a great combination. Anyway, thank you for tuning in to this quick look at the 2026 Cadillac Vistiq EV. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do. If not, no hard feelings, of course. You can follow me on Instagram at Dan the Wheelman, on Blue Sky at Dan the Wheelman. Of course, keep it locked too. The Dan the Wheelman YouTube channel, always fun new stuff going up here, there, and everywhere. So thanks again for tuning into this video, folks. Hope you enjoyed it. This is Dan the Wheelman signing off from the Vistiq.